Thanks to everybody that watched the tour of my backyard garden that I posted a couple of days ago. And there's been a lot of requests to, take a look at what the front garden is looking like now. So I'm going to try and take you through and do a similar type of tour that I did last time. Today is Sunday, April 27th in 2025, and I'm going to do a slow walk through my front yard garden. Thanks so much to everybody that toured with me a couple days ago, where I posted my kind of a slow walk through my backyard garden. So this completes the picture. This is the front yard. As I said, it's it's late April 2025. I've done a series of videos at different times of my front garden. So for those that have been following the channel, there's other seasons that you can see, other years that I've posted videos of the garden because it changes. Check those out because it changes a lot year to year, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, really. So I garden in Portland, Oregon, USDA zone 8B to 9A. Honestly, I kind of interpret it as 8B because we do get snaps of cold. And so that just, I push the envelope sometimes and call myself a zone 9A when it's convenient to me, when I want to, push the boundaries of hardiness on a plant. But generally speaking, I kind of choose plants that are zone 8. The garden is 50 by 100 feet, which is a pretty typical um, lot size for Portland, Oregon. As you can see, I'm in a neighborhood. Actually, I'll pan here. This is my neighbor's garden, which I am cultivating as well. I've done a video on this garden at different times. And it's a newer garden, but you can kind of see that it is becoming part of the overall scene. So I'm not on my property now. I'm down the block, and this is the overall scope of where I'm gardening. And I'm going back and I'm going back. So, there's going to be about 100 feet that I'm gardening street side, and this one is still under development, but it is kind of part of what I am, part of the picture that I'm trying to create. So this down here is my neighbor's garden. We're kind of walking through. Most of this was planted several years ago, but then it kind of didn't get a lot of a development. And then in the last year or so, I have been filling it in and actually, kind of taking the lead in terms of plant selection and ongoing garden development in it. And it's been really awesome. They're pretty happy with the arrangement, and I'm pretty darn happy with the arrangement because it means my garden just got bigger. So, anyways, that's an area. But there's my house again. And let's just kind of walk around a bit, kind of like what we did previously. I'm not able to identify all all the plants. I grow hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different plants, um, many of which you can find on my website, eGardenGo.com, which is a website that I publish that is designed to help gardeners of all levels be more successful in combining plants. And so check it out, eGardenGo.com. Lots of plant combination ideas, lots of beautiful photos of plants and gardens. This area is full sun that we're looking at right now. So it's the sunniest part of my garden. And I'll ID a few plants for you now. And there will be times when we go through the garden and I don't remember the plant name, but if it's practical, I will go ahead and put it up on the screen later as I'm editing the video if it's something that I really think you're going to be asking me about. But here, this is a favorite plant. It's only going to get better as the season goes on. That is called Bupleurum fruticosum, a very drought tolerant, handsome shrub that's going to get dill-like flowers later in the summer that the bees just love. That electric orange there is a barberry, and you can see I've repeated it a couple different times in the landscape. If you kind of just look for those pops of orange, that is Berberis rocket. Just love that one. It's so electric right now. What we're seeing in the garden now is really driven. I mean, yes, there are flowers, but it is driven by foliage uh, in this season more than flowers. The flower show is just beginning. I mean, a little later, we'll see a lot more, actual flowers, from this section here. I'll have echinacea and salvia and foxglove and just any number of different plants. But right now, what we're seeing is just foliage textures, variance in color. We've got sedum, blue pearl, super, just a favorite. I just love that color and its sturdiness, its hardiness. This is Erodium chrysanthemum, drought tolerant, ferny, attractive foliage, and just beginning to flower. We've got a different variety of barberry in there, more of a rounded form, but it's kind of behaving in a similar way to the orange rocket that we saw. That yellow, that shot of yellow right there, that's a different barberry. I've had it for quite a while. It's very dwarf, very slow growing. That's barberry Berberis golden nugget. The other things that you're seeing in terms of overall structure to the far left, that's in Japanese maple, that's Sango Kaku. In the middle with that kind of otherworldly, kind of uh, weepy shape, that is a dwarf conifer called Cedrus deodora divinely blue. It's been in the garden for quite a while, so it's kind of slow growing, structure making plant. A magnolia, and then we've got a Catinus golden spirit that is beginning to leaf out there. Structure wise, also, I've got the retaining wall out front, which is Corten steel that dives into these basalt borders and really just makes a nice frame for the garden. I really like using some of the rusted steel, and in my design practice, I did that in a number of different gardens over the years. One thing I did this year that is a change, or it's not really a change, it's kind of a reset, is that the front of that wall was getting kind of overgrown with volunteer plants, little, they weren't weeds per se, but I wasn't able to, with all the plants that were there, I wasn't able to see and appreciate the wall. So what I did this winter is I dug all of those plants out, salvaged some, and then went in and dug it down and added about 3 inches of quarter 10 gravel. So that will be much easier for me to maintain and keep weed free. As I'm backing up, you can kind of see the parking strip part of the garden. All right, my parking strip is wider than average, so that's kind of nice. It goes, 50 feet on my garden and then another 50 feet over here. And they are about, I think they're 10 feet wide, something like that, maybe 12, probably 10. And I've kind of got a little steel theme, steel and basalt theme acting as a frame out here as well. So woven steel that the plant's kind of as a retaining wall, if you will. Not really a wall because it's quite permeable. And it's in a current state of change and flux. So one scene is coming to a close, and the next scene is kind of building. So it's rather, well, frankly, it's a little messy right now because what we're seeing is a lot of spring bulb foliage that is dying back, or bulb foliage in general. You know, I had tons and tons of crocus and species tulips out here, and there's tons of alliums. So the alliums are only just now beginning to bloom, but their foliage is still quite present and, you know, a little chunky and a little hard to manage. But that will die back very much so in the next week or so, and then the look of the garden will kind of evolve, get a little tighter after that. So right now, kind of messy. So, but gardens are process, always, always process. And the beautiful crepe myrtle there, just beginning to leaf out. That's Zuni. Got a Lonicera lemon beauty there with kind of a fountain, cascading fountain shape. Cephalotaxis right there, pretty established. It's a nice columnar form, kind of forms a corner point for the garden. Another conifer that is, you know, I just love emerging foliage. So this is a Suca canadensis moon frost. And that new foliage is just every bit as good as flowers. I like that one. And again, lots of bulb foliage that's dying back. So, you know, kind of scruffy in some areas, but other scenes are definitely sweet and nice and beginning to kind of show what their summer color story is going to be. In here, this will change a lot. There are a lot of summer flowers in here. And I've shown this part of the garden quite a bit on a number of different videos. I've showed its evolution. You know, it used to be quite different. So this garden is something I've been working on for the last couple of years. And later in the summer, it's got, oh gosh, it's got Veronica. It's got a really cool dahlia right in the middle there. Lots of sedums, some clematis go through, a hardy geranium, just on and on. We're now going up. We're going up, leaving the street, heading up towards the front. That's my front door. I love my yellow door. That was a good choice. And just to kind of give you a lay of the land. If I go down that way, it goes to my side yard garden towards the south. I've done different videos down there, so you might want to check those out. We'll take a closer look at that in a second. Kind of another connecting path down that way. We'll walk down there in a minute. Just doing a slow pan where you can kind of just see the overall layout. Lots of big containers on the porch. And the absolute best, the absolute favorite of this part of the garden is this seating area here. We spend a lot of time here, especially early in the year. This is a very pleasant place for us to kind of spend the late afternoon. It's later in the summer, it's a little hot for us, but in spring like this, it's just wonderful place to sit outside and enjoy the garden. Let's take some close-up views of this. Just lots going on here. Really playing with color connections, playing with foliage. Love repeating foliage colors. Absolute favorite rhododendron here. That's rhododendron medusa. I've been adding and experimenting with the brunneras. Later in the season, I'll try and show you a comparison of all the different varieties because they're coming up with some new breeding, some new breeding on some of the different runners that I was just curious as to how they're going to look later in the season because some of these are just really going to develop huge foliage. Right now, their flowers are just kind of these delicate blue things, which are perfectly fine. But what I really love about that plant is the big heart-leafed silver foliage that develops later in the season and looks great for months and months. See that conifer and the Zuni crepe myrtle from the other side. So what happens here is that this is kind of my view when I'm sitting in the front garden. And so it's private, but not socked in. So, we're still able to interact with neighbors, still able to, kind of get a feel for what's happening in the neighborhood, but it's also really quite private. So we're able to have a little bit of the best of both worlds there. Later in the season, this will be much more, a lot more flowers will come into play. Right now, it's kind of foliage driven. The little dwarf and unusual Pieris right there. Rhododendron Williamsianum. Pieris, excuse me, yeah, little heath. Pieris japonica little heath. Nice fern that's just fresh and beautiful. It was recently cut back and now it's re that's come that was cut back to the base in several weeks ago and now all that foliage is fresh and new. There'll be some clematis coming through there. A little later, this rose will be taking center stage. There's some clematis trailing through there that are just beginning. You probably can't even see them. This exocorta is, the blooms are fading, but it was very sweet and very pretty. My favorite tree in my entire garden is this Stewartia monadelpha. So just, you know, not much noteworthy happening right now, but later it will get beautiful camellia-like flowers. It gets an excellent fall color, and its bark is just a beautiful creamy color year round with that exfoliating bark. Really attractive. Down this way, we've got, well, a couple things. We've got an open fence line, which has different vines growing along it, just beginning to come into bloom. I've got clematis of probably 3 different varieties through here, and those are just coming along. Later in the summer, there's a fuchsia that is fuchsia Hatzbachii or something like that, and it's kind of a climbing fuchsia, if you will. Not that it climbs, but it can be trained against a fence or something like that. And so you'll see that. One of my mini rhododendrons that I've collected for their fabulous foliage. This is rhododendron yakpak. A different podophyllum that, let me see if I can show you this one. So this is podophyllum kaleidoscope. So it's very old. It's been in my garden for a very long time. And it was, predates Spotty Dotty, which is now, out and widely available. Not actually grown too much and offered too much anymore. And justifiably so, because actually it's been in my garden for ever and ever and ever. And That's about as good as it's ever looked, even though, I mean, yes, it is fun, but it's just much weaker grower than many of the other ones that have been developed. Fatsia spider's web. That new foliage is pretty attractive. I've got a Rosa metabilis back there starting to bloom and pruned in a rather unusual way, as I am wont to do. Oh, look at this back there. This one is gonna be part of my future garden plan. It's a vaccinum with really attractive fresh new foliage. So it's our, a cultivated variety of our native blueberry. And ultimately, it's going to fill that space. Right now, you can't really see it very much, um, but later it'll be more dominant. There's a lot of ebb and flow in my garden in terms of like, things that are planted for later, like that one. It's like it's attractive now, but I know that as the garden develops, it will there will come a time where it's actually a more dominant plant, and that means that I'll probably have to make some sort of modification to make room for it. All right, see if I can back through here. Oops, that jostle was me almost falling down. Okay, so I'm now kind of standing. Actually, here's a frame of reference for you. Remember I told you about that yellow barberry? We looked at it when I was uh, down on the street, and then that dwarf conifer, which ain't so dwarf anymore, Cedrus, Deodora, Divinely Blue, and the Sangokaku. Okay, I all of these plants here are kind of they're just containers, plants that I am curious about, that I want to grow but don't have room for in my garden, or maybe things that I'm propagating. My space is so small, and I utilize every single foot. So there's no place for me to really hide things. Hoping that I get some good blueberries off of this one this year. I don't have a lot of edibles in my garden. Once upon a time I did, but I don't now. I'm really just enjoying growing a lot of the ornamental plants and creating beautiful garden pictures and collecting plants, I guess is what I do. But I collect plants and I grow a lot of plants, but I want them to look good together. So that's my goal is I do have a collector's garden, I guess. I never really thought of myself as being a plant collector, but as it happens, I am. But what I really, really, really am interested in and what I try to do is to create a garden that is fun for me to cultivate, fun for me to explore plants, but holds together in an artful way. So I hope you appreciated this tour. I hope that you'll check out some of the other videos that show the garden in different seasons and, check back again. And I'll try and give you some updates to show just how much the garden changes throughout the year.